Coming up, DC sanctuary status called into question by ICE activity, and DC public school employees intervene. Restaurant workers see through big business lies about tipped minimum wage. But first, leftists took to the streets this Saturday in a big way. Is this resistance amounting to a real popular front? More in a minute. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the MDC Dispatch. I'm your host, Tony, and I'll be bringing you news and events from Metro DC DSA. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and be on the lookout for a new Dispatch episode every first and third Sunday of the month. Saturday was a big day. DMV socialists and allies from around the country took to the streets of the Capitol for not one, but two protests. And both demonstrations had monumental attendance. We're talking hundreds of thousands of people. We're talking over 1,000 events. Resistance is here. For our main story, let's dig into what we are fighting. First up, in potentially all 50 states and of course the District of Columbia, crowds gathered for hands-off rallies. The hands-off title is a way to decry the right-wing freaks' dismantling of our public services. Trump, Musk, and their goons have hijacked power with their grubby little hands, and it's on us, not our Democratic Party saviors or anyone else, to pry it back. If you joined a protest in your state, tell us about it in the comments. We have a lot to get to in our hands-off lists. To name just a few: Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, abortion rights, labor rights, fair elections, privacy and personal data, public lands, consumer protections, clean energy, water and air, schools, libraries, free speech, queer people's rights, and immigrant safety. In DC, the historic character of this moment felt real. This is the heart of empire, the room where it happens, and by it, we mean a government coup. So it felt damn good to be surrounded by people who were yelling back in the faces of fascism, saying, "Get the hell out of our basic services." It's not like the government was known for being generous in this country anyway. The March on Washington for Palestine also took place on Saturday. As a unifying moment for the left, the march condemned violence abroad. Trump's regime is carrying out Genocide Joe's legacy of financially and otherwise supporting Israel's ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. We say enough. We gathered by the thousands to demand an end to the genocide, a liberated Palestine, and in particular, freedom for our political prisoners. I'm not talking about the political prisoners in Palestine, to be clear, though there are thousands of them. I'm talking about the students and other advocates who have been abducted for speaking out about the genocide, and in some cases, just being associated with Palestine in tenuous ways. Trump and Secretary of State Rubio, one of the most pathetic losers in his cabal, are sicking literal Gestapo on students, researchers, and other community members, especially those who are not U.S. citizens, and jeopardizing their safety. You've heard of Mahmoud Khalil at Columbia University, Rumeysa Ozturk at Tufts University, Badir Khan Suri at Georgetown University, and others being kidnapped by masked plainclothes officers and forcefully taken from their families. Khalil was a negotiator for the student encampment movement at Columbia. Ozturk wrote an op-ed about the student resistance, and Suri was not a Palestine activist, but is married to a Palestinian woman. Let's be clear here. They are coming for all of us. They will stop at nothing to silence us, but we will not rest until our community members are freed and our cause is vindicated. That's why we protest. That's why the resistance is not going to die down anytime soon. You'll keep seeing DSA and others show up in droves to end the regime of brutality at home and abroad. If you're unable to join in person this weekend, there are still ways to plug in. MDC DSA formations such as the Migrant Justice Subcommittee, the Internationalism Working Group, and Labor Working Group all play a role in longer-term strategies to resist. Get involved through interest forums for each. You can find them linked in the description and in the full weekly update. To get you all ready for future protests, a safety notice. We need to be smart about our communications, because the bad guys are listening in, if you know what I mean. Under the Trump administration, there has been an increased willingness to target demonstrations, including seizing phones. As protests have been running frequently in the first months of the administration, and more are likely to emerge throughout the spring, all activist protesters and leftists should take as many safety precautions as possible. Not sure where to start? Check out the Neighborhood Anarchist Collective's activist checklist. And don't forget digital self-defense. The Electronic Frontier Foundation's Surveillance Self-Defense Guide can help you prep your tech before you march. Find both guides linked in the description. Socialists planning to join DSA protest contingents are encouraged to follow this guidance. First, if you don't already have it on your phone, Signal is recommended for coordinating with people in your contingent. Second, write the National Lawyers Guild legal hotline number 202-850-0010 in Sharpie somewhere on your body that will be easy for you to see, such as your forearm. This way, you can readily call the number from jail even if you don't have your phone. Third, and most importantly, turn off Face ID, fingerprint unlock, and any other biometric way to unlock your phone. The police cannot force you to give them your password, but they can legally hold your phone up to your face or thumb or however it works on your device to unlock it. Doing this doesn't just protect you, it protects everyone in your phone. You can review our communications security notice in the full weekly update. Stay sharp as you plan to join future protests. The Restaurant Association of Metropolitan Washington, or RAMW, is pressuring the DC Council to repeal Initiative 82, despite no council members introducing such legislation. Initiative 82 is a ballot initiative passed by DC voters in 2022. It raises the so-called tipped minimum wage year by year until it comes in line with the full minimum wage in 2027. The initiative has been praised for giving stability to restaurant and other tipped workers, as well as preventing wage theft and other abuses by employers and customers. It passed overwhelmingly with 74% approval, but instead of respecting the will of voters, the RAMW is spreading misleading claims about job losses while restaurants impose confusing service fees that cut into workers' tips. The Restaurant Association's focus on worker wages is curious, given that it is not the largest source of cost increases posed to restaurants. They could be advocating for policies in DC that would actually control costs posed to restaurants, things like commercial rent control, fair licensing fees, or expanded public benefits such as paid family leave or universal health care coverage to reduce business overhead. RAMW's mission, however, is not to represent the interests of legitimate local businesses. No, their objective is to represent the interests of the National Restaurant Association, the other NRA. In creating a stir, their objective is to seed the impression that increasing worker wages is creating problems for restaurants, so that similar initiatives do not take hold in other states and cities. The Fair Price, Fair Wage Coalition, which includes Metro DC DSA, is calling on the public to show support for Initiative 82 by attending a press conference in front of the Wilson Building at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, April 8th. Workers and allies intend to lobby the council afterwards in order to steal resolve in the Wilson Building against RAMW's cynical propaganda campaigns. Check out the latest Fair Price, Fair Wage policy memo, linked in the description, to learn more about the ongoing fight. Last week, early Wednesday morning, ICE agents descended on H.D. Cook Elementary School in the Adams Morgan neighborhood of D.C. Their target was an elementary school staffer. Staff at the school quickly intervened by repelling the 8 agents, successfully stopping the arrest. In response to reports of other ICE mobilizations targeting elementary schools, at closing time in Columbia Heights, Mount Pleasant, and Adams Morgan, local anti-fascists quickly mobilized to protect staff and students from potential arrests, scaring off the lowlives who make up America's immigration enforcement networks. Yeah, real tough guys. Authority has expanded beyond ICE in recent weeks. Customs and Border Patrol, U.S. Marshals, DEA, ATF, Homeland Security Investigations, and Diplomatic Security Service, all the tough guy departments, have all been deputized to carry out immigration enforcement crackdowns, akin to the Gestapo. The terror campaign has expanded beyond the bounds of undocumented immigrants. Legal immigrants deemed as enemies of Trump are also being disappeared without any clear legal pretense. You heard about Rumesa Ozturk in our earlier segment. She was kidnapped in broad daylight in the streets of Medford on camera. In New York, a 21-year-old permanent resident from Korea is being dogged by jackboots for having participated in Palestine solidarity protests. And again, 2 weeks ago, Georgetown University professor Badar Khan Suri was abducted from his Roslyn home, sparking protests on campus. This modern Gestapo has a civilian wing, as Zionist groups stalk students and activists who dare stand against racial supremacy and genocide. These groups, who have received funding from Republican operators for some time, appear to be coordinating in some way with Trump's regime and feeding them information. DC area locals are encouraged to follow guidance from DC Migrant Mutual Aid in reporting suspected ICE activity in your neighborhood. Or, if you know someone detained by them, call Migrant Solidarity Mutual Aid's emergency hotline at 202-335-1183. If you are a bystander, document but do not engage. Verify the federal agency, record dates, times, and locations. Take photos and videos of the interactions, but do not post them on social media. Find additional immigrant support resources linked in the description. Let's zero in and turn to the case of Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia, a Maryland resident who was deported to El Salvador last month despite having legal protection to remain in the United States. Abrego Garcia, a 29-year-old Salvadoran national who is married to a U.S. citizen and has a 5-year-old son, also a citizen, was granted what is called withholding from removal status back in 2019 by an immigration judge. That this was granted means he could face torture or persecution if sent back to El Salvador. But despite this legal protection, Trump's Gestapo immigration agents detained him and incorrectly told him that his status had been changed. Then put him on a flight straight to El Salvador. Now he's being held in a prison known as CCOT, which has a dark reputation for brutal conditions. While the Trump administration has admitted this was an administrative error, they claim they can't do anything to bring him back. This is where the story gets even more concerning. Abrego Garcia's lawyers filed a court action arguing that previous administrations have moved quickly to correct similar errors. But in this case, Trump officials are washing their hands of any responsibility, typical of this brutal regime. They refuse to even force the Salvadorian government to release him, which they can do, claiming the U.S. courts don't have jurisdiction. This is also happening against the backdrop of increased deportations, as mentioned earlier by this administration, including the use of a rarely invoked wartime statute to deport certain immigrants. What does this mean for U.S. citizens like Abrego Garcia's wife and child, like Khalil's pregnant wife, and others when their family member is wrongfully rounded up in prison and deported? Resistance is more critical than ever to push back against this unlawful authoritarian regime to protect immigrants, U.S. citizens, and anyone who comes here to work, study, or seek asylum before we slip even further into a Pinochet-style violent dictatorship. Drop your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear from you. Join our chapter for any of the huge slate of events coming up in the next few weeks. RSVPs are linked in the description. Today, Sunday, April 6th, Metro DC DSA and Montgomery County Branch are hosting our general body meeting, both virtually and in person, at Rockville at 2 p.m. Members, be on the lookout for information in your email and be sure to RSVP for more info. Monday, April 7th at 10 a.m., come out to the Wilson Building to show solidarity with tipped workers and support for Initiative 82, along with the Fair Price, Fair Wage Coalition. Tuesday, April 8th at 7 p.m., join us for the Burning Case for a Socialist Green New Deal, a conversation on socialist climate politics with Dr. Olufemi Otaiwo, Georgetown professor, DSA member, and author of Reconsidering Reparations and Elite Capture, How the Powerful Took Over Identity Politics and Everything Else. The talk will be followed by an interactive session about DC's local Green New Deal campaigns and strategies for the path forward. The neoliberal climate agenda has failed us. As Americans face down 4 years of federal environmental backsliding, the need for locally driven movements to advance transformative climate justice policy and build a Green New Deal has never been more urgent. Saturday, April 12th from 1 to 4 p.m., the Metro DC DSA Book Exchange and Street Team will be at the Wangari Gardens Spring Festival with button making and printmaking, book sales from After the Storm, and ways to get involved with the chapter. Bring a book, take a book, or 2 or 3, and join your neighbors for a potluck, yard games, music, and educational workshops. Also Saturday, April 12th from 2:30 to 4, join the Nova Abolition Working Group for a hybrid film screening and panel discussion of The Facility, a documentary about the organizing led by migrants detained in the Irwin County Detention Facility at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. Organizer Nilsen Barahona, featured in the film, will be part of the panel. The event is free to the public. More than just DSA is hosting events in the coming weeks, so are many other groups. Here are a few upcoming events. On Monday, April 7th, Free DC is holding recess at the Capitol, Part 2. Congress is threatening funding for DC schools. Keep making noise. Meet at the Spirit of Justice Park between 9:30 and 3 p.m. Advocacy trainings and family-friendly recess activities are happening all day. Also, Monday, April 7th, UDC is hosting a Stop Solitary event. This in-person gathering will bring together advocates from the community to raise awareness and drive change to end solitary confinement. Between 11 and 5 p.m., meet community partners like Harriet's Wildest Dreams and Voices Unbarred. Attend film screenings, workshops, and panel discussions. Tuesday, April 8th, Busboys and Poets hosts writer Alec Karakatsanis. He is well known on social media and Substack for writing about the police, media, and propaganda. He'll be in DC on a tour for his new book, Propaganda. All book royalties are being donated to community organizations. Finally, on Saturday, April 26, DC Justice Lab is holding their annual Community Safety Fair. Every year, DC Justice Lab brings together a cohort of directly impacted residents to reimagine what justice and safety can look like in our city, culminating in a free public event where participants present their ideas to community members, advocates, and local decision makers. Drop by the MLK Library between 1 and 4 p.m. to hear those community-rooted policy proposals. Find these activities and many more at the calendar of events on our website or in our full weekly update, also linked in the description. The Democratic Socialists of America is growing. If you're not a member of DSA and would like to connect with other like-minded activists, community organizers, and neighbors, visit dsausa.org and join today. Metro DC DSA is the third largest chapter in America with over 2,000 members. We are active in the community and have groups focused on labor, tenant rights, LGBTQ rights, environmental activism, and more. DSA is the largest socialist organization in America, and we would love to have you as a member. These and other stories, along with links and sources, can be found in the Metro DC DSA Weekly Update newsletter, which you can find linked in the description. This production has been a collaboration of members of Metro DC DSA. Look for new videos on the first and third Sunday every month. I'm your host, Tony. A better world is possible.